The International Space Station is the ultimate extreme home.
Space is an environment where human beings were not meant to live.
The most expensive structure humans have ever built. Here, in the most inhospitable environment known to man.
The only reason we can go there is by taking technology to provide us with everything that we need in order to stay alive.
It comprises millions of high-tech components. There are 16 pressurized modules with living quarters, sleeping bays, an observation deck, and 6 science labs, all connected via airtight tunnels. There's plenty of parking for visitors, including spots reserved for Russian Soyuz capsules, and the ISS's lifeboats, which are on permanent standby in case of emergency. Unlike any other structure, the ISS has to provide everything its astronauts need. If it fails, they die.
A human being can only survive for 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and 3 minutes without air.
For humanity to successfully venture well away from Earth, astronauts will need to be self-sufficient. If the ISS can solve the challenges, it will prove humans can truly live in space. But before anyone can take up residence, the engineers behind the ISS had to get it into space. And it weighs a colossal 460 tons, the same as about 300 cars.
It would be great if we could just build the International Space Station on the Earth and then just blast it into space.
You couldn't just fly the whole thing up there in one shot. You had to take a piece at a time and assemble it together like Lego.
Cruising outside the Earth's atmosphere, the International Space Station has to provide everything the astronauts need to live. And breathable air is first on the list.
Their very survival really depends on the things that we provide them. And you're also having to deal with the fact that at any point in time, if one of your system fails, you have a very limited amount of time to either get something from Earth or to get back to Earth as quickly as you can.
In a crisis, an emergency supply of oxygen can be sent up by rocket.
3, 2, 1.
With technological advances, spacecraft can now rendezvous with the ISS in 6 hours, if everything goes as planned. But even when a cargo delivery is successful, there's a price to pay. The cost of each mission is colossal, almost $200 million.
It's expensive to bring a kilogram of anything up to the space station. And to spend all that money just to bring up water and oxygen would be an incredible waste.
The ISS needs to make its own air.
The oxygen on the ISS can come from a delivery from Earth, and then they're stored in tanks. But the ISS is also capable of generating oxygen on board.
On Earth, we take air for granted. In space, each astronaut must be supplied with 1.85 pounds of oxygen per day, 365 days a year, to avoid suffocating. In the very heart of the ISS is an unassuming machine about the size of a trash can. It's this that holds the secret to keeping astronauts alive. Incredibly, it generates oxygen from nothing more than water.
So what happens is you have some water, you feed some electricity through that water, and the electricity will split that water into hydrogen and oxygen.
The oxygen comes off as bubbles at the positive electrode, the hydrogen at the negative. But again, being in space turns something that's straightforward on Earth into a major engineering challenge. The bubbles of gas won't come out of the water.
In your high school chemistry lab, the gas just bubbles up to the surface because the gas is lighter than the water, and therefore it goes up. Gas is not lighter than liquid in space because gas doesn't have any weight and liquid doesn't have any weight. So you produce gas bubbles and they just sit there. And what we generally do is we centrifuge it. So you spin it all around, and the liquid, being denser, it doesn't weigh anymore, but it still has mass. So it's denser, and it goes to the outside, and you can then separate the liquid from the gas.
The hydrogen gets thrown away, gets pumped into space, and the oxygen is used for the ISS air supply.
If space station were to be hit,
About 1 minute from TCA.
and you just kind of hunker down and hope it doesn't hit you, and you just sit there and wait.
Looks like that's it.
Fortunately, this time it's a near miss. But the ISS cannot rely on luck.
The International Space Station is designed to work in the low Earth orbit, which is full of space debris.
A lot of space junk is human-made. You know, they are things that we have put up there, satellites largely.
NASA has identified more than 500,000 orbiting objects that could pose a risk to the integrity of the space station's hull.
Luckily, most of the stuff that's big enough to hurt us, we can track. There are a few objects up there which are too small really to be tracked well, but they're big enough to do damage.
The ISS is constantly bombarded. Most of the debris is tiny, but even a half-inch fleck of paint could inflict the same damage as a motorcycle crashing at 60 miles an hour. To be a viable home, the ISS has to be able to take the hit without losing all its air.
The ISS basically has a bulletproof vest. So just like a bulletproof vest, which has different layers of Kevlar that can rip as a bullet enters it, the ISS has different layers in its outer skin.
The space station's skin is known as Whipple shield. The outer wall is made from a thin sheet of aluminum, less than 1/10 of an inch thick. Beyond that is a blanket of woven material and a further thin wall of aluminum. It seems too delicate to protect the ISS from a direct hit.
It turns out that a solid piece of metal does not offer as much protective power as if you cut that metal into very thin sheets, spread them out a little bit.
When there's an impact with a high-speed micrometeoroid, it hits the outer wall of the ISS and pulverizes. Some fragments pass through the first layer of aluminum, which disperses some of the energy. Then there are layers of Kevlar and Nextel, a ceramic fiber that's stronger than some metals. As the fragments hit this blanket, they break up even more and don't have enough energy to penetrate the hull.
It's kind of counterintuitive when you think about it, you know, that a whole bunch of sheets of aluminum foil could somehow give you more protection than putting them all together. But that's the way it is in space.
The Whipple shield has protected the space station from micrometeoroids for over 20 years. But it's ineffective against anything larger. If a large object on a potential collision course is identified, the only option is to move the whole ISS out of its way.
We've been very privileged. We've seen our home planet from a very different perspective. First of all, it's incredibly beautiful. I mean, you look at the thin blue line that's our atmosphere, you look at the aurora, you look at thunderstorms, you look at the beautiful oceans. When you start looking a little closer, there are some troubling things. You basically see the impact that humans have had on our planet, and that can be pretty scary at times.
The long game for humanity could be to stop being a one-planet species. The ISS is the first step towards that future.
In the future, we're going to have hundreds, thousands, I hope it's 10,000 of people living, working in low Earth orbit.
Research on the ISS is heavily geared towards improving life for astronauts who will travel much further than ever before.
It's phenomenal. So it really is the world's greatest laboratory.
On Space Station, a lot of the experiments that they're doing are human-based experiments in order to learn more about the human body so that we can endure a 2.5-year mission to Mars and back.
From fitness to food production, the focus is on long-term self-sufficiency for astronauts.
And we are developing the Orion capsule here, which will be launching the first manned mission in 2022.
And liftoff at dawn, the dawn of Orion, and a new era of American space exploration.
Missions in the coming years are only possible because the International Space Station has solved so many of the problems that space presents.
The future for space is bright, and it's going to be exciting.
Booster engine cutoff. Goose Pathfinder startup.